Our next speaker today is Bryan Hill, digital media strategist at data center solutions provider Interxion, joining us from the UK. Bryan, good to have you with us. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Willem, and thank you for inviting us, and good afternoon to everyone on the call.
Great, thank you. As with all the other speakers, we'll kick off with an audience poll. In order to participate, I've said it 5 times now, but for those who tuned in later, please scan the QR code on your screen or visit slido.com and enter the event code GIH. As an operator about to launch into a new market, how high on your priority list, you at home, is choosing the right data center service provider? We're looking at some backdrop for the discussion here with Bryan. It seems important, Bryan, so that is good news. We'll get to it eventually. We have a very polite audience here today. Give it a few more seconds. And it's quite clear, Willem, so everybody knows it.
Yeah, I think, Willem, you and I were hoping this might be a little bit more controversial.
Exactly, but it doesn't seem to be, or we have a very polite audience here. But in any case, it brings us to the first question. Why should operators care about data center?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we look at it is, we work with lots of the world's leading iGaming operators across the globe, but we start with their business challenges. We don't talk about data centers first. And the themes that we hear are, how do we deal with the fast changing regulatory environment? How do we go into new markets quickly? How do we do it appropriately? How do we do it in compliance? And finally, and probably most importantly, how do we deliver the best kind of multi-channel experience for the customer and deliver the highest performance that's going to enable us to build, retain, and grow our customer base and keep churn low and do it cost effectively? And we see that data centers are an important element in solving for many of these challenges, but not all data centers are the same. So we see the criteria that customers use as, we'd like a global provider if possible that's going to be in the right locations so that when we want to go to those markets, we can go to them quickly. We need the highest quality data centers, resiliency, uptime, security, certifications like ISO 27001 and PCI DSS, but most importantly, access to the right connectivity providers and cloud providers that is going to provide that great quality of service to the customer. That's about reducing latency. That's about ensuring high quality experience that customers demand, and also ensuring that you're reducing those costs of providing that service to the customer.
Okay, well, thank you, Bryan. There's a lot of elements where operators should care about that. I think it's a great perspective. Let's go a little bit into detail with a second question to you. And that question is, what are some of the concerns raised by your existing iGaming customers, your operators, and how have you addressed those?
I don't know whether I would classify these as concerns as more as kind of questions that our customers raise, but they ask us, where are you now, but more importantly, where are you going in the future as well? We're investing billions of dollars in going to new places around the world. So they want to know where we're heading, because that's important for their planning, future planning, and their roadmap. So they're ahead of the curve. Obviously, we get a lot of the kind of detailed questions about, what's your connectivity proposition? What's the latency from here to there? On the technical side, we get questions now about increasing densities. That's, particularly with kind of leveraging more GPUs and AI and ML, whether that's in their own stack or hybrid clouds. They want to know how far we can push that, because they're doing lots more heavy data processing. We do get legal questions. We're not a legal company, but we do have a kind of partner of community providers, that can assist, whether that's legal companies, managed service providers, data vault providers. So our customers, we facilitate those introductions. But most relevant, I think, for today's webinar is, why should I put my infrastructure stack in Amsterdam? Yeah, because under the regulations, of course, you can just put your control database in the Netherlands, and you can just put the rest of your stack in the EU. Yeah, so that's perfectly viable. But however, as we've said, latency and performance for the customer, the end user, is a very important metric. Yeah, Amsterdam is the third biggest connectivity metro in the whole of Europe. In Amsterdam, we have over 13 data centers, 210 connectivity providers, so the CDNs, the clouds, the carriers, the ISPs, that's going to enable that experience. And that increase in customer experience is one of the elements that's going to help differentiate one operator's service from another. And it's for that reason that we've already seen a number of iGaming operators deploy in Amsterdam already with us.
It all happens in Amsterdam. We know that. We have
the Netherlands is the most important, so we know that.
You emphasize it. Great. Thank you, Bryan. Kidding aside, we have time for one audience question. Let's see if we have something in Slido. Again, you can ask your question in Slido, point your camera at the QR code, go to the Q&A tab and ask the question. You have question here, quick question, Bryan. Could you briefly outline your customer onboarding process?
Okay, so very briefly, there's the kind of specification of what a customer is going to need inside the data center. That kind of provides the kind of scope of works. It can take a few weeks, depending on what the customer wants to deploy, to maybe 2 or 3 months to get that customer operational. But once there is then a service transition where we kind of our team walks hand in hand with the technical personnel of the customer to ensure that every stage of the implementation goes correctly. And then there's a kind of handover to more of a service team that then actually walks through everything from delivery logistics to use of the customer portal to every single element. And then post kind of the customer going live, there are regular checking calls to make sure there are no issues, and if there are any questions, we respond to them very quickly. So it goes through a series of handoffs from one team to another with a central person that is always the customer's point of contact.
Great, that's quite clear, Bryan. Thank you for answering the question. Thank you for joining the webinar today. If you would like to contact Bryan, you can do so using his contact details that you see on the screen here, and you will also see this in the video that will be distributed tomorrow. Bryan, thank you for joining us, and see you soon.
Thank you, Willem.